Hi, good evening. Happy International Women's Day to everybody. Tonight's live couldn't come at a more suited time, to be honest, because I'm going to be joined by Mel Johnson, who is from The Stalk and I, at The Stalk and I _ there she is. And we're going to talk about solo motherhood. So let me invite her in and then we can chat. Hello to those who are joining. Nice to see you. Hopefully it will connect in a sec. Let's see. Okay.
Hello.
There, we're connected. Hi, Mel. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm well. I was just about to say, but you were very quick to join, so thank you. Very prompt. Saying that it's International Women's Day, so this is a very good day to be doing this.
Absolutely. Good
Yeah.
timing.
So, welcome. And first of all, thank you so much for being a fantastic ambassador for the Fertility Clinics versus COVID campaign that Fertility Help Hub has been running for the last 8 weeks, ends on Wednesday. So thank you for being in support of that. And for anyone who's joining and doesn't know, we've teamed up with 7 fertility clinics around the world and a sperm bank to offer free donor sperm and 7 free rounds of IVF to 8 couples or individuals seeking help. So you can head to fertilityhelphub.com to apply before Wednesday at midnight. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and then talk a bit about your personal story, if that's okay. Oh dear, I think we've lost the connection. Hang on, let's try again. Can everyone still hear me? Is everyone still there? I'm not sure her internet's too good, so we'll just see. If not, I might have to leave and then come back again.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I think there's something going on with the internet.
Oh, typical. So shall I introduce myself?
Yes, please. That would be great.
Yeah. So my name's Mel Johnson. I have a 3-year-old daughter, Daisy, who I conceived using IVF with donor sperm. Um, And basically, during my journey to motherhood, I was single at 36 and was feeling pressured, like time, that there is a time factor, and just decided that if I didn't do something on my own, I might miss out on motherhood. But it was a decision that was a really difficult decision for me. I really had an idea in my mind that I would be becoming a mother with a partner. And it took me quite some working through to embrace a different way of doing things. But once I had worked through that, I really did embrace a different way. But at that time, this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago now when I started on my journey, there wasn't really anybody else that I knew of who was doing this and following this path.
Mm-hmm.
And so, although I was surrounded by some amazing friends and family, I didn't know anybody who was in the same situation, and that felt quite lonely. And so, what I decided when I became pregnant was to start the Stalk and I, to just see whether I could help support anybody else who was in the same situation as me. And roll on sort of 4 or 5 years later, and now there's a huge community of people who are in the same situation, and I think find real comfort of speaking and reaching out to people who are experiencing the same thing.
Amazing. And I guess, as you said, that support wasn't there for you when you were doing it. So to give people, to give women this chance to have a network of others who are doing the same thing must be very empowering.
It's so amazing, and I think what so many people say to me is the power of speaking to somebody who really gets your situation. I've got amazing friends and family who are super supportive, but speaking to someone who's in the exact same situation, you're just like, oh, you understand how I
Mm-hmm.
feel, we're going through the same thing. So the power of that connection and that community is immense. And myself personally, I've got so much from meeting so many people who are going through the same journey, who are experiencing the same challenges that I experienced. And what I'm now doing is trying to support people to embrace this path to parenthood, to let go of the original idea that we might have had, and to really fully embrace this alternative way of doing things. I'm also passionate about you know, educating society a little bit on happily ever after
Hmm.
looking slightly different for some people,
Yeah.
and it not being better or worse, but just different.
Hmm.
So yeah, but this community is the power of it is unbelievable.
I have to just say, I'm really sorry, but you've frozen on my screen, so I can just see a static picture of you. Can you see me?
I can see you, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what's happened, but I'm looking at you as a photo. But I think you're right, because there is also like a narrative, as you said, isn't there? Because I mean, you would be able to tell us more about this, but do you find that most children's books and all sorts of things are very much geared up to two parents?
I think for people of my generation, so I'm 42 now, I think we grew up with that for sure. So on the course that I run this group coaching course. I've got a slide full of films which explains why we believe that happily ever after is meeting a partner, getting married, and having children together, because so many films, that is how happily ever after is
Mm-hmm.
displayed. Children's books, you know, everything around us. So for our generation, I definitely think that's what we grew up with, which is why it's slightly harder to let go of that idea. I really hope that for our children's generation that will be different, and I can see a lot more diversity coming into books now. I think it's about choice. Like my daughter's bookshelf is hugely diverse, because we choose quite specifically to do that. So I think there's a lot more choice now, but I do still think there is a lot of you know, happily ever after being displayed as meeting a partner, getting married, and having
Mm-hmm.
children, and that's what we need to change the narrative on a little bit, to say that's not the only way. You know, there's other ways.
Absolutely. And your daughter Daisy, I love that name by the way. She's 4. Did you say she's 4?
Three.
3, sorry. So have you started talking to her about you know, where she came from and the dynamic of family? Have you had any conversations with her?
I have. I actually started literally from birth to do this, because mainly for me to get really comfortable with the story. So I feel like she'll be influenced by, you know, how I feel about things. So I have got quite a lot of resources about this. And yeah, I started reading them to her well before she understood any of it. Um, and I sort of split it into 3 different areas. So I talked to her about diverse families. That's probably the main thing. And that's where the importance of books comes in as well. So talking about the different types of family setups. We've got a book where she's like, that's 2 daddies, that's 1 mummy, that's, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, and she likes pointing at them and talking about the differences. And I think that's really great for any child. It doesn't
Mm.
matter what situation they're from, to understand about diversity. We've got the great big book of families, which talks about some people have pets and some people don't. Some people live in different types of houses. Some people go on holiday to different places. And so just her knowledge of the fact that people do things differently, in general, and then the different family setups. That's the first thing. The second thing then is about donor conception. So I have the Happy Together children's book
Mm-hmm.
and the one from the DCN. They're probably the 2 main ones I use. I think it's called Our Story. And Daisy loves both of those. And so we talk about how you need a seed or a sperm from a man and an egg from a woman. And when you put that together in mummy's tummy, that's how a baby's made. And, you know, there's some level of understanding that that's what happens. Um, and then the last bit is almost like connecting the dots to say that's our situation.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about family, and what I emphasize is who's in our family. So, Daisy will always say, it's me, it's Granny, it's Grandad, and then she starts reeling off the whole family. We've got a book with everybody in it that she talks, she likes to look at the pictures and talk through. So my view on it is that I don't want her to think anything's missing. So rather than looking at someone who isn't there or something that's missing, we talk about all the family that we have got. And I make that quite big, because we include some of our friends in it who we consider family.
I love that.
Yeah, and then what's really interesting is I did a podcast last week with Professor Susan Gollenbach, who's done a lot of research in this area. And what she told me is that actually children don't really start understanding donor conception until they're about 9 or 10.
Right.
But that it's really valuable talking to them about it from now anyway, and they'll just start to understand more and more about it as they grow older.
Mm-hmm.
But she certainly understands about family types. So I feel really confident to talk to her about it, and I hope that confidence will mean she feels the same.
I'm sure. And as you said, we've been doing the same thing, even on our own, just talking to our children as and when, since a very early stage. And yes, that's to help them, be brought up always knowing, but also to familiarize ourselves with how we're going to talk about it, because it can be hard sometimes to know, to find the right words when it's such a complex kind of story that you're trying to tell to someone who's very young. So I almost feel like I've been rehearsing, making it very easy to talk about myself too.
I totally agree. I've done exactly the same, and I've been caught out a few times when my friends' children have asked me things. So I'm very clear on what to say to my daughter, but then when older children of my friends have said something, I'm like, oh, when it just throws you, and then you're like, actually, I really want to be confident on how to answer these questions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been quite helpful in some ways for me to get it clear myself, how to answer questions to children of different ages. And I think what's really important for me is to give my daughter the confidence to be able to explain her own story, so that when she gets questions about it from her friends, that she feels like she can really confidently explain it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And have you told nursery? Is she at nursery?
Yeah.
Have you told nursery?
I have. Nursery are really good, actually, my nursery. So yeah, they're always really considerate about, if it's a Father's Day or whatever,
Yeah.
they ask you, who would you like a card to be made out to? They talk about different families at nursery as well. So they seem really supportive.
Right.
And I said to them recently that she started asking quite a lot. That was the other thing that came from the research that Susan Gollenbach had done. It said that children from solo mums who've been from donor conception actually start asking when they're like 2 or 3, and that I had that experience. Daisy started saying, "Have I got a daddy?" At about 2.5, just before she was 3, and when I used to ask her, she was like, "No," as if it was a stupid question. No, I've not got a daddy. But then occasionally she's been more inquisitive about it in relation to her friends have got something, so she wants it. And again, it's just having the confidence to talk and to listen to how she's feeling about it and to talk it through with her. So, but it's quite surprising how young they start asking about it.
Yeah, and taking things in. And I did a Q&A the other day about donor conception, and I mentioned that I've told my children's nursery that they're donor conceived, and someone asked, why would you do that? Why would you need to do that? And I said I didn't need to do it, but the reason I did it was because we're talking to the children about it. They may say things or bring things up, and I didn't want the teachers to kind of almost react in a way that was as though it was a big surprise and something to react to, if that makes sense.
I think it's really important to tell them, for them. I mean, especially I suppose for me, because there's an absence of a
Mhm.
father, and so otherwise they won't know what to say when if someone says, "Where's your daddy?" Like they
The
definitely need
words.
that
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's really a good idea to say, because you don't know what your kids are going to be talking about with
Exactly.
their friends, and I think an adult understanding the situation can help clarify stuff
Hmm.
if there's a conversation that needs their support. Yeah, I think it's a really sensible thing to do. I'll definitely continue to do that as Daisy
Hmm.
gets
Me
on.
too. And just rewinding a bit, I know we've just focused a bit on parenting, and if anyone's got any questions, please ask Mal as we go. But when you told friends and family that you had made that decision, first of all, was it a decision that you made where you woke up one day and thought, right, I'm going to do it now, and started looking at sperm banks? What was the process like, and how did people react?
I wish it would have been that. It was, I woke up 3 years later and
Right.
thought, okay, I'm definitely going to do this. So, honestly, I was the classic person who was like, I'm just going to give it 6 more months to
Yeah.
meet someone. And I just kept on thinking it's bound to happen. And then finally, I think when I was 36, 37, I was like, even if I meet someone tonight, I'm still going to struggle to have a relationship with them to a point where I'm ready to have children and have children quickly enough. So I just thought, you know what, I haven't got any more time to wait for any 6 more months. So how it worked with my friends is, because I'd been thinking about this over 3 years, getting more and more seriously thinking about it over that time. I'm a massive oversharer anyway. I've probably told everyone I've ever met that I was thinking about it, but in a very vague, considering it way. And then as I decided to do it, I told a small group of people, I've actually made this decision. And like my mum was like, oh, finally, because
Aww.
I'd sort of been thinking about it for so long. So
Was that a strange
absolutely.
conversation to have with her the first time? Just to bring that up and say, I've been thinking about this.
I mean, not really. I knew that my mum also really would love
Yeah,
grandchildren,
yeah.
and she knew how much I wanted to have children, and I sort of said, you know, Mum, I'm just not meeting anyone. I mean, I might have to think about doing it on my own. And my mum was like, yeah, I mean, why
Mhm.
not if you don't? So it was a very casual, it wasn't like a big let me sit people down
Yeah.
and tell them this. It's for me, it sort of kept on evolving, where I started to tell people and then sort of just told them more and more as I progressed.
Mhm.
Um, so
Do you
yeah,
think
the absolute vast majority were supportive.
that's good? Do you think that there's been a rise in people doing it on their own because of COVID and not meeting other people?
Absolutely. I have never been contacted by so many people.
Really?
Um, the very beginning of COVID, everything sort of stopped and it all went really quiet. And then, a couple of months in, I think people, I mean, everyone's reconsidered everything, haven't
Hmm.
they?
Yeah.
And
The
one
importance
of
of
those
life.
things
Yeah.
and time, and you haven't got endless amounts of time. And so absolutely, I think it's really given people a chance to think, yeah, I'm going to do this, coupled with it's been very difficult to meet anyone this year. If you're single and you're wanting to try to date, it's not been the ideal circumstances to try to date. So although I have got one or two really good stories where people have met someone during COVID.
Oh, really?
Um,
On Zoom?
yeah, yeah, exactly, like over the internet. But yeah, massively increased, I would say, over time anyway, as I think it becomes more talked about and more discussed in
Yeah.
the media, and I think it's gradually becoming more and more common. But I think COVID has definitely got an impact.
Louisa has just asked, may I ask, how did you speak to those other children who caught you off guard? I presume they were a bit older.
Yeah, so the girl who in particular I'm thinking about is 10, and what she said to me is, "Has Daisy got a daddy?" And I mean, so I can answer that very easily. I was like, oh no, Daisy hasn't got a daddy. It's just Mummy and Daisy, and then Daisy will chime in, and Granny and Grandad. um, but then if they start to ask, well,
Why?
how and why, the difficulty is that I don't want to start telling them something that their parents aren't comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I've now had conversations with my friends to check what they want me to say and whether they're comfortable. Because really, I talk about, to have a baby, you need an egg from a lady and a seed from a man, and then you put those together in a lady's tummy and it makes a baby. And I need to check that my friends are okay with me starting to sort of tell them a little bit about this. And kids are so inquisitive because
Yeah.
sometimes they won't let it go, and they're like, "Well, how do you put it together?" And how, I'm just checking with my friends how much they're comfortable for me to say. And it's an easy story in some ways because you say, well, you go to a doctor and the doctor puts it together for you, and there's something called a donor, and a donor is a man who does a kind act by giving his seed to you because you need a seed to make a baby. So that's how I explain it, but I do just double check with the parents first that they're happy with my explanation.
Oh, I've had quite a donor day today. I interviewed a sperm donor earlier today, which
Okay.
I found fascinating, obviously being in the receiving end, to hear
Yeah.
about, why he did it and whether he has any kind of desire to meet the offspring in the future. So it was a
Okay.
fascinating conversation to have because I don't know how much you know about your donor, and this obviously was not my donor, but it, we always use the word sperm donor and have his number and got a few childhood photos, but it's strange in some ways not knowing, his name and where he lives and that kind of thing to some degree, I find.
Yeah, no, it is strange. We've got, I mean, the donor that I used was from the UK, so you don't get quite as much information as if you've used one of the banks maybe in America. So we've got some physical characteristics. We've got the letter that he wrote to both myself and my daughter. So we've got, some information that I can paint some sort of picture on. Um,
What did he say,
but
if you don't mind me asking, in the letter to you? How was that worded?
Um, the only thing is I'm hesitant to say what um, the detail of it, because then if anyone else has used the same sperm
Ah, I
donor,
see. But just
um,
in general
so
terms, what would someone write in that letter to a parent?
so basically it's their reasoning for
Doing it.
donating.
Okay.
And I mean, I've seen a load of different ones. So they say things like maybe they knew someone in their family who struggled with fertility issues and
Hmm.
that's why, or maybe they didn't want children but they wanted to help someone else who wanted children, or there's like a whole different reasons. And then they write a letter to you to explain why they've donated. Then they write obviously slightly different letters of a future child to explain in more simple language why they've donated. And
Really nice.
yeah, so I think a lot of people just read one and think, oh, that sounds, yeah, that's something fits nicely with me
Mhm.
about that, and that's how you can choose.
And forgive me, Mel, I can't remember because I know you've been on my podcast before, but did you do IUI? I can't remember.
No, I went straight to IVF. Um, just for personal reasons, really. One was I lived in Budapest at the time. I was working in Hungary, and I was having treatment in Manchester because that's where I'm from. And at the time in Hungary, you couldn't have treatment as a solo woman, which is really annoying because it would have been a lot more reasonably priced if
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
had it in Hungary. Um, but so I was flying back, and I was thinking flying back and forth for IUI would, with IVF, they
Yeah.
really timed it exactly, and I knew exactly when it was happening, and I could book flights, etc. So that was the one reason. And then the second reason was just the statistics, to manage my own sort of like, you know, the roller coaster of the journey you're on. I was thinking if I can give myself the highest chance for it to be successful
Yeah.
first time, then that's what I'll go for, because I had saved up enough to have IVF. So I
Did it
had one
did it
round of
work?
IVF. Yeah, so one round of IVF, and then I had three embryos. All three got frozen because they said I needed to wait to put even the first one back in. And then the first one wasn't successful. And then the second one is now my daughter.
Wow. And so have you got one embryo remaining?
I have,
Okay.
which is so hard because,
Hmm.
you know, in an ideal world, going back to the fairy tale version, I would absolutely love to have a second. But it's just realistically whether I would be able to manage with two in my current circumstances. So, I mean, I feel like I'm probably going to pay for storage for that embryo forever, because
Yeah,
I'm not ready to
can't
say
I
that
know.
I'm not going to
Hard.
use it.
Mhm.
But yeah, at the moment, probably not.
And so for people who are joining or have joined, and if you have any questions, please ask Mel whilst Mel's here. What would be your top bits or top 5 pieces of advice for anyone who is sort of already on the process, or just even thinking about starting the process? What would you advise people to look into or do potentially?
So, number one piece of advice, I'm a massive fangirl of Susan Gollenbach. So, she's got a book called We Are Family, and the research that she has done on different family forms and the impact of having different families is just mind blowing. And for me, that really reassured me. And so, I recommend everyone to read that book because it explains what's important for family. And, you know, spoiler alert, it isn't how the family you know, is structured. And when you get questions from other people, if you've read the book and you've got the research and you know the facts, it's very easy then to really confidently talk about you know, and reassure people that you understand and you've researched and this is what the research says. um, so that would be the first one, the research. Second one is support network. So I mean, let's just take COVID out of it because that's been a disaster. But I don't feel like I am parenting alone. I feel like I'm parenting without a partner. And in more normal times, I've got a really good support network. So it's about getting people in place that are going to help you so you don't have to do everything on your own. And I think that you know, we often think that because we've chosen to do it on our own, we have to show that we're absolutely capable of doing it on our own. And I've really tried to work on not doing that and to say, I don't have to do it on my own. I'm just doing it without a partner, and let me embrace the help that other people are offering. So getting the support network in place, I think, is really key. Not worrying about what other people think of you. I think a lot of people worry about what other people are going to think. Are other people going to think it's acceptable? Are they going to agree with your decision? Are they, you know, trying to just not worry about what anyone else is thinking and focus what's important to you. And then what's a huge thing for me is comparison, really working on dropping comparison. So a big differentiator for me, for people who really thrive with this path to parenthood versus the ones who are struggling more, is the people who've let go of comparison. So if you're constantly thinking, oh, that would have been easier with a partner, or wish if I had a partner then that wouldn't have happened. Or I'll give you a classic example. Nursery phoned me up and said, Daisy's not well, you need to come and get her. And I was thinking to myself, oh, like I had loads of stuff, and it was, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it was so difficult for me to go and get her, and she wasn't seriously ill. Uh, and I was thinking if I had a partner, and then I was like, no, if I had a partner, they'd also be working, and then
Yeah.
probably we'd be arguing about
Yeah,
which
back
one
in
of us
again.
goes. And
Yeah.
so your first thought can't always be it would be better or easier with a partner. For me, it's really saying, this is my circumstance. Let me embrace my circumstance and make the best of that, rather than constantly thinking how it would be in a different circumstance. And that's what I do. I help people on my group coaching course reframe their situation and really embrace um, that decision if they decide to become or to start the journey to solo motherhood, and own it and design their life around making that an amazing decision, an amazing situation, not thinking, I wish it would have been different.
I think that's great advice. And what about if people want to date?
So I've actually got a podcast episode coming out on Wednesday with a dating coach, where
Oh,
we
cool.
talk all about dating. And her main advice that we talked about is, if you're thinking, I'm just going to give it 6 more months to date before I start trying the solo motherhood route, have a strategy. I call it relentlessly dating. So if you're going to give it 6 more months, you have to actually put some action into then trying to meet someone. Because quite often I speak to people and they're like, I'm just going to give it a little bit longer to see if I meet someone. And I'm like, what are you doing to try to meet someone? Oh, just hoping that I will. And
Yeah.
particularly at the moment, you're
Hmm.
just not going to meet someone unless you're really putting some, you know, effort in. So having a strategy of how you're going to meet someone, and she talks a load about mindset. So enjoying the process, letting go of the outcome, and just, trying to take time pressure off yourself, and just enjoy dating. So that's my advice if you're thinking between, should I start fertility treatment on my own or dating? And then dating as a solo mum, there's massive advantages, because that time pressure is just gone, and now you can feel much more relaxed and just seeing if you like the person, rather than having all these other requirements
Hmm.
lumped on top, although there are quite some logistical issues of how you
Is
fit
it
in.
is it a strange conversation to have with someone you might go on a date with? Like, is it something that you would bring up very soon into dating?
Yeah, so I mean, I bring it up immediately, because it's such a big part of my life,
Yeah.
and I don't want to waste anyone's time. So if
Yeah.
someone isn't up for that, then it's just pointless. Time is very precious.
Totally.
It's pointless wasting each other's time. So usually what I found is that probably people have filtered themselves out. If some people don't want to date someone with a child, and that's completely fine. The people who do, mostly I would find people are like, amazing, you've got a child, you've decided to do this on your own, there's no ex-partner that you have
Hmm.
to contend with. And so I found that, like, people who've contacted me have been quite, they've seen it in a really positive light.
I think I
So
remember you on
yeah.
your. Sorry, I was just going to say on the podcast, you said what's a bit strange is the fact that you have to call your mum to ask her to come and
Yeah.
babysit, so she knows exactly what's going on with your love life.
So once I said to my mum, I'm 40. At this time, I was 40, let's bear in mind. Mum, am I allowed to stay out till 11 o'clock? And that's not a conversation you expect to have at 40 with your mum. And my
No,
mum was like, yeah. And then I came home at 9:30, and my mum was like, I take it that didn't go
didn't go
well
very
then.
well.
So she knows way too much about my dating life. That is definitely a problem. Luckily, I'm very close to her, so it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, did I interrupt you? Were you going to say one more thing about that?
I know, no, no.
I think it's amazing advice. Thank you so much. I hope it's been insightful for people who are watching or watching back. And yeah, you offer so much support with your community, like online and obviously online, but sorry, through social media, but also with your courses as well. So someone has said, what do you do about going on dates if you have limited support groups or no babysitters on tap?
So I am very creative when it comes to going on dates. So basically, you can go on a lunchtime date. So you could meet
Ah.
someone for a walk and a coffee for half an hour at lunchtime, depending on your situation. You can go for like a really early evening date. So you could meet someone at like 4:45 or 4:30, before you go. And like my daughter's in nursery, so I go and meet someone before I go to nursery. Um, or one of the things that is really great is if you can meet other solo mums in
Mm,
your area. Honestly, so many of my friends would like me to meet someone. I think if I ever asked any of my friends, "Will can you just babysit whilst I go on a date?" They're like, "Yes, yes, yes."
yeah.
Um, but I think other solo mums, we've got like a local group of solo mums, and if I really wanted to go on a date and didn't have anyone to help me, they would definitely help, and I would do the same back to them. So
Mm,
meeting, other people in your area who you can take it in turns a little bit with,
yeah.
I think is also a way to do it.
Great advice. Thank you, Mel. So, yeah, anyone who is thinking about this, do contact Mel because you do offer support in so many different ways. And thanks for coming on live tonight and all your support with the campaign I've been running as well.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Really great to offer the campaign to single women as well. I was really pleased that that they're included.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, exactly. So there's still time to apply until Wednesday, and fingers crossed it's going to benefit 8 people around the world. So who knows where it will be in a year's time. Someone's just said, where is a good place to meet solo moms? I presume through your network, Mel. You have a
Yeah. So
community.
I've got a Facebook group called the Stork and I Mum Tribe, and on the Facebook group we've got regional WhatsApp groups. So you can have a look at where the closest one to your area is, and then that's how you can meet other people in your area, or just contact me and let me know, and I can figure out where you live and where the closest one would be to you.
So useful. Thank you so much.
Great, thank
Have a
you.
nice
Lovely
evening.
to chat
Thank
to you,
you
and
too.
you.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.
Bye.